Submitted for your approval. Submitted for your approval.
Another dimension.
Submitted
Light.
for your approval.
Another dimension.
Submitted
Light.
for your
Shadow.
approval.
Another dimension.
Submitted
Light.
for your
Shadow.
approval.
Another dimension. Self.
Submitted
Light.
for your
Shadow.
approval.
Another Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval.
The Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval.
The Twilight Zone.
Hello, hello, hello. You're listening to a podcast not only of sound, but also of mind. It's Time to Rewind is a podcast that takes a journey into a wondrous land of time loops, whose boundaries are that of imagination. I'm your host, Bubbawheat, and each episode my guests and I explore these time loops, one loop at a time. This stop is Trapped in the Twilight Zone, and this is the sixth stop at 2020's Season 2, Episode 9, Try, starting at 25 minutes and 49 seconds with a morning montage, and ending at 26 minutes and 1 second with Mark accidentally pushing Claudia in front of the truck. Here with me for the last time is Jason Soto from Rabbit Hole Podcasts. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. How about you, Bubbawheat? You okay? Are you good? You need a drink? You want a refresher? Do you want anything? I'm getting up. Anyone want anything?
No, I'm good here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so this is bottom of the downward spiral of this mini montage.
Yes.
And this is, I love this. It's just, I think this episode does a good job in general of bouncing back and forth between being, serious and being funny. And this is definitely one of the funny moments with him just completely accidentally pushing Claudia in front of the truck to where she gets creamed.
Yes. Yes. This guy must have been accident prone before the loop, and then it took him being in the loop to kind of hone in his to no longer be clumsy, because he just like merely bumps into her and she goes flying into the street and gets hit by the truck.
I mean, I haven't mentioned it with you yet here, but I imagine I would mention it in the earlier episode, but Mark is played by Topher Grace, most well known from that 70s show as Eric Foreman, and as well as Spider-Man 3, he played the first Venom.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for most people, but he basically made a name for himself as being the awkward, nerdy guy.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think he really plays that up in this episode. Like I think it's funny because I feel like this character is almost a good representation of what Eddie Brock could have been in Spider-Man 3.
Okay.
Because
All
it's
right.
that he has that good mix of friendly but with a sinister undertone whenever things start getting dark.
Okay.
But he's still just awkward and doesn't really know how to handle anything.
I never thought of it that way.
And he's a character that would need like the extra strength and basically the evilness that the Venom symbiote would give him.
Wow, now I'm just picturing Venom going through a time loop. Interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. But yeah, absolutely, this part was kind of funny, like the way he just like bumped into her, she went flying into the street, got hit by the car, and just went, oops, and then just like try to casually walk away.
Yeah, he gets the shifty eyes and then just darts out.
Yep. Yep.
And his book this time around is The Portable Yanofsky, a collection of short stories. And I think that's interesting because that's actually referenced earlier in the episode, which for him would be a later time loop.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's interesting, to see that whenever like me watching this multiple times, having that show up as it's not really foreshadowing because it happens after his Yanofsky quote, But
Right.
it shows that he really is basically tailoring himself to fit into Claudia's idea of a perfect man. Because she probably mentioned Yanofsky at some point, and so he gets this portable Yanofsky and reads it cover to cover. And then he has that quote to pull to show off to her because that's her favorite quote, is this Yanofsky quote.
Yeah.
And once again, this is a fictional book. There is no such thing as the portable Yanofsky collection of short stories. But there is a couple books that I found that I think could have at least somewhat inspired this book title. And one of them is called The Portable Chekhov, which was edited with an introduction by Avram Yarmolinsky, which that's kind of close to Yanofsky.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's interesting too because Chekhov was referenced in Groundhog Day.
Oh yeah.
As he's
you're right.
And he talks about Chekhov's winter in his final Groundhog Day speech.
Okay.
And the other one is a book from an author named Noson S. Yanofsky, and it's called The Outer Limits of Reason, What Science, Mathematics, and Logic Cannot Tell Us. And I think that's interesting because, the Outer Limits is like a Twilight Zone-esque show. It's
Yeah. I was just thinking that. Yeah.
And I also like that it is like a collection of short stories because from Mark's point of view, you can almost feel like each day of his is like a short story because it's just, a single day long and it doesn't really connect to the day before or the day after. It's its own self-contained day.
Right. I know nothing about any of these writers. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I don't either. But like his quote from Yanofsky is, "Absurdity is the too true truth," which is very difficult to say.
Yeah.
We put ourselves in quarantine.
Yes. I remember that from the show because the word quarantine now is like a trigger word. Like what? Okay.
Yeah, and this did come out in 2020.
And you did. You're right.
Even though I'm sure it was filmed, like it would have been filmed in 29 before any of this.
Yeah.
All this stuff happened.
Or did it? Dun, dun, dun. What does Jordan Peele know?
Jumping back to his outfit this time.
Oh, yeah.
This time he's wearing a beanie. He's wearing his glasses again.
Okay.
And he has this scarf this time.
Okay.
And it's this, I don't know, this weird, like, long scarf. It's not wrapped around its neck. It's just, hanging down at its sides. And his jacket is unzipped. And his flannel is just halfway buttoned. And it's like, it makes him look a little bit more disheveled.
So could this just be Topher Grace audition to be the next Doctor for Doctor Who?
It's been a while since we had the Scarf Doctor, which I think it's funny because I've never seen Doctor Who myself, but I have a very vague memory of being at my grandmother's house at a young age, like probably, somewhere between like 6 and 10, and her having the TV on, like most likely on PBS. And I remember, like, I have a vague memory of that scarf.
Okay.
So,
all right.
So I believe, Doctor Who was on, but I have no memory of like what the episode was.
Right.
I just like have this vague memory of the scarf.
Just a scarf. I gotcha. Okay. All right.
If you have guests on your Doctor Who episode, you've got a blank canvas here.
Okay. Yeah, we'll probably eventually start doing guests. Absolutely. And
I did mention that or at least I think I mentioned that there was a little bit of extra symbolism that I noticed in this because I know we mentioned the umbrellas a little bit, and
Yeah.
she has a clear umbrella and he has a black one. And I think that is intentional because, like, if you overanalyze it, her clear umbrella, that shows that her character is like an open book. Like, he sees through her.
Ah.
And then he has the black umbrella, and that's kind of like the black hat. That that's early symbolism too, like very subtle hints that he is not a good character, that he is the villain. He's the black hat.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. I never thought of that, but okay. I'm down. I like it.
Yeah, like finding these little things like that.
I mean, we're talking about a 5-second clip of a TV show. You got to kind of find something to talk about. That, or we just completely derail the whole conversation like we did the last episode. So you have your choice.
Like one other thing that I think is interesting, and it makes me think that that this specific book is important because he does drop the book on the ground as he's running towards her, and there is like just a brief second where the camera lingers on the book itself, so we can actually see the title that so we can see the word Yanofsky. And they also bring this book back again for the end credits.
Yes, that's true.
Which it's not the book that he carries whenever he is like during his day, because that is Lords of Imbecility.
Oh.
Is the book that he carries like during his the main chunk of the episode. But I think it's an interesting decision that for the end credits they brought back the portable Yanofsky.
What is it about that book that ties the episode together?
Yeah, I am curious now that I think about it, and I think it's something that I am definitely going to try to dig into a little bit more in future episodes. But right now I don't have the answer. I just have that's just the seed. This is just me first noticing this.
Okay. Well, when you have the reunion episode of this podcast and you have me back on, hopefully you have the answer by then.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't really have anything. I feel like this is the shortest of the three loops.
And that's saying something.
Montage, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, these were all like about 20 seconds, 25 seconds versus a 1 second slap.
True. Just true. Not the shortest thing I've had to cover on this show, but yeah, absolutely.
But was there anything else, about the loop?
About the loop itself, no. I think we covered how comedic it was that he basically caused her demise, and he did let me get back away from this slowly. Not that there's a bunch of people here witnessing this, and maybe he went to jail in this loop and we didn't see it, because Bill Murray went to jail in Groundhog Day, so
yeah, and
something to think about.
Oh yeah, that does remind me of another connection to Groundhog Day that I wanted to bring up, because during the main part of the episode, at one point he does reference that he's basically living a life without consequence, and I think that's interesting because that's also almost exactly how they put it whenever Bill Murray is talking with the two drunks, and they also talk about if tomorrow never comes, then you can do anything you want.
Yep.
Like there's no consequences.
No consequences.
And that is exactly like that is his philosophy at various points where he feels like he can do whatever he wants. But in this context, it gets a lot darker than it ever really got in Groundhog Day. Even though I do think that it was brought up a couple times about the question of whether Phil Connors would ever go like Grand Theft Auto on on
Yes.
anybody. But I definitely think that Mark had some Grand Theft Auto days.
Oh, totally. He 100% did. Absolutely.
Honestly, that's probably where he died at some point
That
as
could have
well.
been it. That he could have carjacked the wrong car and he got shot in the face.
Yeah, he got
Absolutely.
you know, five stars.
5 star, yeah. But like I said, that's kind of what I liked about the episode was that it basically shows what it would be like if an actual person was going through this. They would just probably eventually just become numb to the whole thing and then just be like, okay, I can do whatever I want, no consequences. I can't get killed. I can't go to jail. I don't got to do a court date. I don't got to, face, consequences. Like, I could mess with this person and then the next day they don't remember me messing with them. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Let's just do it and just goes hog wild. Absolutely.
Yeah, he even gets to a point where he basically dehumanizes everybody, where they're
Yes.
not. He stops seeing them as people and he
Yeah.
starts seeing them as things. It's like,
And yep.
these are just things that exist in my world, and
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow it's gonna be a different thing. It's gonna because
Yep.
they don't matter anymore.
Exactly.
But this is an episode that the more I watch it, the more I enjoy it,
Okay.
and I think it's worth giving it another shot and seeing maybe if you end up listening to this podcast, maybe go back and watch it again. And I think it, overall it is something that's pretty well written. Other than I do agree that the dialogue in the beginning is a little bit difficult to get to, but I also think that it serves a purpose for the story.
All right. I mean, like I said, it was my first go around, and I'm just like, who are these people, and why are they saying these words? Like,
Yeah.
but now that I know what's going on and what's going to lead to, you're probably right. I'm sure it'll be more tolerable in the future. So I definitely will give it another go and see what's up.
And then the episode that I wanted, the classic Twilight Zone episode that I wanted to bring up this time that I watched was suggested to me by Paul Hawkins, who was a guest in the first season, and he also watched Heidi 2 with me, also known as Courage Mountain.
Yep.
Um, but it's the episode Nick of Time. And
Yes.
that is one of the William Shatner episodes that doesn't involve a gremlin on the wing of a plane.
Exactly. Yep.
But I thought
Yep.
this was a fun little episode. It's like him and his wife are making a stop in this little town because their car broke down on their way to New York.
Hmm.
And there's a little napkin fortune telling machine where you put a penny in and it prints out a little paper fortune, and it has like a winking devil head, bobblehead on the top. And Shatner's character becomes obsessed with this because he thinks that every fortune is true. Like he tests it out by asking if he's going to get the promotion. And so he calls his work and he did get the promotion. And then
Yeah.
he starts asking, well, should we leave or should we stay? And then he's like, oh wait, it has to be a yes or no question. It's like, should we leave at 2:30? And it's like, um, it starts being ominous, where he thinks that something bad will happen if they leave. And then he's like, okay, what if we stay until 3 o'clock? And then the fortune teller's like, okay, if you leave at 3 o'clock, you'll be okay. And then they leave like just before 3, and then they cross the street and almost get hit by a car. And
Hmm.
so they like rush back, and then he's like, there's like somebody else sitting there at that table, and his wife's like, why don't you just use a different machine? There's a bunch of them. And he's like, no, I got to use that one. And so he goes back to that one and he starts like obsessively asking it questions. to the point where he's not even like reading them out loud to the camera anymore. And then his wife like finally like snaps him out of it. And like oh yeah, the other moment is like he asks if his car is going to be done soon, and then it's like, the answer will become clear shortly. And then the car repair guy comes in. It's like, your car's done already. And so that's the moment that they both like kind of freak out. And it's like, okay, this is really happening. But then the wife, she basically snaps him out of it. It's like, are you going to let this fortune teller control your life, or are you going to control your own life? And so he eventually like agrees with her, and they leave. And then shortly after, like another couple like rushes in and starts asking it questions, and it's like, can we leave now? So you get the impression that they're trapped because they're too afraid to leave unless the fortune teller says it's okay to leave. So do you have memories of this episode?
I do, actually. I think I've seen this one. This is probably one of the classic ones I've seen more than once, because I would do that Sci-Fi Channel marathon a bunch of times in a row. And this is one of the ones they would play a lot, because it's like it is indeed a classic episode. But yeah, I've caught this a few times. I just want to point out just really quickly that looking at the Wikipedia for this episode, they mention when this episode aired, and what episodes came before and after it. And this had an interesting run, because the episode before it was the Eye of the Beholder episode, which is the one with the lady who was getting surgery and you don't see her face. And then the twist is that she's actually really good looking, but she's on a planet full of ugly people. That's the twist on that one. And then the next one was this episode, The Nick of Time. And then the one after it is The Lateness of the Hour, which is about this guy who invents robots, and turns out that everyone in the family is a robot, and that was the twist on that one. And those are three, I think, very classic episodes, and the fact that they aired in a row like that is like kind of tantamount to just how on fire this show was back, in its heyday. This is season 2 when all these were aired. And so, just the fact that there's like 3 very classic episodes that were back to back to back like that, I think says a lot about the show.
Yeah, and I like this episode too, because I think it fits with this this podcast's concept of the time loop, because they are trapped by this outside force in the same way that Mark is trapped in his time loop by some unseen force. Similar to Groundhog Day, he never has any explanation of what's trapping him in this time loop. I mean, as a viewer, we assume that it is the Twilight Zone itself that's trapping him, but he doesn't have any knowledge or explanation of how he got there or how he can get out. And I think that fits well with the Nick of Time episode, with these characters, that they're becoming trapped by their own superstitions.
Mm-hmm.
They're projecting their own fears of the unknown onto these very vague fortunes that just happen to match with what they have in their head.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the great episodes too, and this is early William Shatner, so he hasn't fallen into his recognizable speech pattern. He actually acts like a normal 50s person.
Yeah.
Early 60s person in this.
Yeah, William Shatner was a good actor at one point, we promise.
Yeah. But that's all I have. I'd like to thank you once again for joining me in this mini montage. I think we got through it a lot quicker than we did the last time.
Yep.
But I think we also had a lot more to talk about too.
Mm-hmm.
A bigger variety of things to talk about as well.
Indeed.
But for one last time, why don't you go ahead and remind everybody where they can find you online?
Absolutely. So I host and co-host a bunch of different podcasts, all of which you can find on rabbitholepodcast.com. There's the aforementioned Doctor Who one, there's a board game one, a comedy one, a horror movie one. There's a whole bunch you can check out. All in one neat, handy little website, rabbitholepodcast.com.
And as always, I am Bubbawheat, and you can find me at flightsightsandmovienights.com. You can find me on Twitter at Bubbawheat. You can find this show, It's Time to Rewind, on Anchor.fm, as well as anywhere else where you listen to podcasts. And we also have a Facebook group. It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group that you can join and have discussions about episodes as they air, and also just discussions and memes about time loops in general. And until next time, I will still be right here, trapped in the Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval. Submitted for your approval.
Another dimension.
Submitted
Light.
for your approval.
Another dimension.
Submitted
Light.
for your
Shadow.
approval.
Another dimension.
Submitted
Light.
for your
Shadow.
approval.
Another dimension. Self.
Submitted
Light.
for your
Shadow.
approval.
Another Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval.
The Twilight Zone.
Submitted for your approval.
The Twilight Zone.
I got you.